Okay. You bet.
You know, you think 600 primarily men in one building, we might have some testosterone issues or whatever. We, you know, I think I'm blessed that they work hard. They're grateful to have a place to live, and we have a very strict set of code of conduct rules that they agree on before they come in. So even though the employer pays for the room, the individual agrees to a set of, you know, don't cross these lines, and plenty of lines have been crossed as far as alcohol on the property or smoking in your room, or even down to being messy and dirty in your room.
I run this disposal. I'll just kind of walk you through what they do. The trucks come in here. You see these filter pods here. They hook up to them and they pump off through them filters. Then it goes into my pump house, and then it goes to another set of filters, and then from there it goes to the first two tall tanks, which are called my gun tanks, and then it gradually goes through all the tanks to the two end ones, which are my suction tanks. Then it comes back into my pump house and goes through another set of filters. And then from that set of filters, it goes to the pump, and then the pump pumps it over to the wellhead, which is right here.
So I'd like to introduce Chris Roberts. Chris is the lead for the emergency response team for the state health department, who responds to any environmental spills and catastrophes that happen. And of course, in oil country, there have been a few. This is one of the first. And I'm just going to turn it over to him and let him describe the incident.
Hi. Yeah, that would be good. First off, before I do that, to help you understand a little bit why EPA chose this site as part of their national hydrofracturing study, because we did have a blowout here in 2010, and it was subsurface. Just to give you a little bit of an idea before we get started, the Killdeer Aquifer runs right through here. There's a little bit of silty clay over the top, and then basically almost 200 feet of sand and gravel. The good thing is, and I was going to read this from Al Wanick's report on this as to what it's about, but the good thing is there appears to be a groundwater divide right behind us, in which the Killdeer Aquifer, which is right here and a little bit north of us, where we're standing, flows, or potentially flows, in an easterly direction toward Killdeer. On the other side of this little creek over here, where the well pad sits, the groundwater flow is actually to the south-southwest, toward those hills and on down this valley. So it turned out to be very fortuitous for Denbury onshore, who had the problem here. So just to give you a little bit of a quick synopsis here, on September 1st, 2010, at about 1 o'clock or 1:30 in the morning, Sandgel was doing a hydrofracturing on this well. They were just finishing up stage 5 of a 23-stage sliding, what do they call it? Sliding sleeve fracture. For whatever reason, the little ball hit the seat a few seconds before they had shut the pumps down. It blasted back and came back at them at about 8,390 pounds per square inch. Doing that, it blew through their production casing, their 7-inch production casing, which was rated for 9,060 pounds burst strength. Then it burst through the 9 5/8 surface casing, which was rated at 3,500 pounds, and then what they all assumed that it got there, went down along the conductor tube down to about 60 feet and then came back up around it to the surface and stayed at the surface. Nothing got off the location. They had dikes up, they got equipment in quickly, kept everything on location. They had back trucks here sucking it up basically as fast as it came out, and were able to contain it that way. It took them about 5 days to actually get this under control. We could go through all the stuff, but it wasn't as easy to plug it off and stop it as they thought it was going to be. The company immediately decided they wanted to put some monitoring wells in right away. So before they even had it fully under control, they had drilling rig here and putting in monitoring wells. We initially put in 3 wells. They decided very quickly after that, and they needed a 4th. The 3 wells, the first one, the up gradient well, was on the northeast corner of the pad, right about in front of those tanks that you see there. The second one was on the southeast corner of the pad, right here. Yeah, you can't quite see it. And by the way, those wells are all gone now. We have closed this site out. The third one was along the south side of the pad, and the 4th one was at the southwest corner of the pad. Sampling for several months really wasn't showing much. They decided we really needed to find out what was going on closer to the well, so they put in another 5 wells right around the pad within 30 feet of the well that blew out. They've sampled that now for about 1.5 years, and as we have found out from all the chemistry that's come back from that, we really haven't seen anything get off location. The one thing that has a little bit come to light is we do seem to have an upward gradient from about the 180 to 200 foot level upward into the upper parts of the aquifer. Beyond that, again, we're pretty well done. EPA is, their report will be coming out next year, so we really can't, release any of the chemistry at this point.
This is Lee Osborne with Marathon, and he's going to, as we're driving through, give us a little discussion of the rig.
Good afternoon. Welcome to HP 438 Marathon Well. This particular site is a 4-well pad. We are currently just instigated to our 3rd well. We have 1 more after this. We just begun drilling this well. Our approximate time on drilling these wells is about 2 weeks. It takes us about 2 weeks to drill these wells, and the measured depth, final measured depth of the well will be 20,000 plus feet. Like I say, we started drilling this well yesterday, and we're currently just finishing doing some testing on our flow acquisition equipment, which I'm sure everybody's been made aware of. IC requires it, BLM requires it. This is not BLM, but we take a lot of pride. You can tell the rig is kept very orderly and very clean. One of the reasons Marathon does use H&P drilling, actually you can see the ground level is level with the matting board. So all that equipment is actually set on basically a 6-inch berm. Just in case we did have an accidental release, we contain it inside the rig confines, where we can clean it up without any adverse effects on the environment.
As the frac, which might take a few days, goes on, you'd also get some thousands of pounds of proppant, which is either a very coarse-grained sand or preferably a ceramic pellet, which is a little stronger, about that same size. And you get the chemicals you need, including a gelling chemical to give the water a greater viscosity to carry the sand down to the fractures. And you wouldn't use a traditional bentonite gel or something like that. You need something that'll break down over time, so that you'll actually end up with some porosity and some permeability. So you get that. There's a a guar bean product from India or Pakistan that's one of the key ingredients to making this cross-link polymers gel, which is actually a little bit more than I understand about the whole process. But anyway, you get this group of chemicals you need, a bunch of sand, a bunch of water. You have the water probably lined up in a bunch of water boxes, which are rectangular boxes you'll see going down the road sometimes, with the back end almost dragging on the ground, it looks like. And you assemble all this and get the water all hooked up. And you begin by pumping just straight regular water at about 4,000 gallons a minute, as I understand it. Pressure's eventually getting up to 6,000 or 9,000 psi. You follow that fresh water, which will be used to hydraulically fracture the rock, which is simply getting enough pressure down there to break the rock in tension and overcome the pressure at that depth. You follow that fresh water by gelled water and sand or proppant. That will move out into the fractures once they're created and hold them open once the pressure is released. Then you follow that up again with fresh water, because you don't want the drilling column full of gelled water when you finish the job. And you'd actually be doing this in the length of the horizontal cased well of 500 feet or a few hundred feet or something like that. A typical well will now have about 40, be fractured in about 40 stages. So you'd go all through this with one stage and then move on to the next one, and the whole process will take a few days, and propagate those fractures out, hopefully a few tens of feet into the better part of the Bakken shale, which is the upper shale, and then back down into the lower, and out a few hundred feet. And occasionally they'll have to put tracers in all this to see just how far out these are going, and then they'll have figured out that it'll make sense to fracture the next one some 500 feet or something like that, over maybe 1,000 feet, but probably less than 1,000 feet, over to make the next lateral. And that's the fracturing process as I understand it.
Yes, we started talking with the State Water Commission back in 2010 about this project, and it took us a couple of years to get things up and running. So the cooperation with Otter Tail has been fantastic. Actually, the water from this plant comes from 27 miles away to the east. There's a pipeline that runs from the Missouri River to the plant, and then what we do is when that water gets here, cold water comes directly to the plant. They put in a heat exchanger, and then they recycle their steam that they use for generating, and we take that waste steam to heat our water. So we deliver water, hot or cold, out of here. The hot water is running 120 to 125 degrees, and with the 8 stations, nothing ever slows down. The frac, depending on how close the fracs are, depends on how busy this thing gets.